Let's take a look at the main bass patch that drops in at bar 17 here. Here we go. So we'll start with the entire plugin chain deactivated and add them in one by one. Very first in our sequence here is the Fatso Senior. We're using the tracking compressor, again, adding a few dB of compression. And we're heavily using that analog tape saturation to compress some of those high frequencies and give it a warmer sound. I like that a lot on the bass. And like last time, you'll see as well that we're using the low frequency saturation module as well. So there's our Fatso. Next in the chain is the Little Labs Voice of God, the VOG. Very impressive and formidable name, and it delivers some pretty fantastic results on basses and kick drums. In this case, I'm using it as a bass enhancement plugin. I found that my original bass patch was a little bit lacking in sub presence, and so I'm using this to add in some low frequencies. And in this case, what this plugin does is it allows you to select a center frequency, and below that frequency there's a very sharp cut, very similar to a high-pass filter. And the amplitude knob allows you to add in a bit of a resonant peak right around the cutoff frequency. So like a high-pass filter, but it has a different sound. And in this case, it's allowing me to gain some nice low-frequency presence to the bass that I felt was missing out of the original patch without me having to go back to the drawing board. So here's with it bypassed. And here's it on. I'm not using it super aggressively here, but a little bit of sweetening goes a long way in this case, and it's giving me exactly the results that I want. Next, let's say hello to the LA2A, one of my favorite plugins to use on bass. It's a compressor and limiter, and it's an optical circuit that operates this bad boy, so it is a little bit sluggish. And in this case, because our bass is sustained, it's not a fast attacking percussive kind of bass, this works really well. The compressor is very simple. It has a gain control, which unlike the 1176 doesn't have an impact on the amount of compression. The amount of compression is dialed in with our peak reduction knob right here, and we can just watch the meter to see how much compression we're getting. This is with the compressor bypassed and active. And in this case, I'm using a similar compression technique to what you've seen me do previously in the track, which is using two compressors compressing a little bit instead of one compressor compressing a lot. We've got the Fatso earlier in our chain and the LA2A later in our chain. Following the LA2A is the Precision Maximizer, which is a favorite weapon of mine to use on anything that I want to really aggressively bring front and center in the mix. Because this piece of music is very bass-centric, I want to really beef up that bass line as much as possible. We have an input dial right here, which pushes up against a fixed threshold, so the more we turn this up, the more of the effect we achieve. Then we have a shape knob, which is going to add in some saturation to our signal. We can activate a 3-band mode here if we want to. In this case, I'm using it in a single band mode. And it does have the ability to limit the signal too, but in this case I have the limiter off. One of the attractive things I like about this one is it's got a mix knob, so I'm actually running this effect in parallel and mixing in the wet signal with the dry, which allows me to really just contour in the exact amount of the effect that I desire. And then we've got an output knob. So let's listen to it before and after. That's dry. Here's the wet signal. To put some finishing touches on our bass and to add a little bit of ambiance around the patch, we're using a send right here to a Universal Audio reverb. This is the EMT 250. It's a digital reverb that I really like for adding short decay tails around sounds. You'll notice it has a very simplistic design oriented around 4 levers. And this first lever controls our main reverb decay time. In this case, at its lowest value, which is 0.4 seconds, so quite a short decay tail on the reverb. These next 2 levers control the decay characteristics of the low frequencies, and the high frequencies. So the way this works is it's a multiple of the original reverb time, so 0.4 seconds. So this is 0.5 of the original. So it means the bass frequencies are going to decay more quickly. Up on our high frequencies, again, is it's a multiple of the main decay lever. And you can see our high frequencies are going to decay at 0.33 of the main decay time. The lever on the right is a pre-delay, so we've given it 20 millisecond pre-delay. And we have the wet-dry slider cranked all the way over to the right, wet soloed, because we're using this in a send return capacity. So let's bypass it and listen to the completely dry signal. And here's with it active. I just find it's quite a beautiful sounding reverb. Gives me a nice lush ambient space around whatever elements I'm applying it to, and I use this one a lot on basses, drums, shorter sounds where I just want quite a clean and short decay tail. So that wraps up our demo. I hope it gave you some fresh ideas for how you guys might use Universal Audio plugins in your mixes. Best of luck with your tunes. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.